Thank you and welcome to PH360 webinar, Personal Health Epigenetics, Understanding the Why Behind Your Foods. Thank you so much for joining us today again. We've got an action-packed webinar ahead. We've got our special guest, VP of Research, Daniella Remy, back again for the third time by demand. And we've actually got a fourth session coming up with Daniella again next Tuesday, same sort of time, with the links coming soon. So welcome everybody. We're really very much looking forward to today. Just again, wanted to remind you all of our mission, our passion, our purpose behind what we're doing. And we are looking to make a big change in world health over the coming generations. And we really need your help. So thank you so much for being a part of this community. We're really looking forward to sharing so much about PH360 with you so that we can help everybody on their journey to be happy and healthy. For those of you who are really enjoying PH360, who are really finding benefit, we're such a benefit organisation, and if you'd love to share your results and help others make a change in their health and in their lives, we'd love to hear from you. So there's a few ways you can do this. Testimonials are absolutely fantastic, and there's so many of those flooding through right now. And congratulations to all of you who are making such a change in your health already. Some of you with only a few weeks of PH360 under your belt. Any videos that you guys want to shoot from yourselves to send through, before and after pics, anything like that is really fantastic to help us really share that and have people understand what PH360 is all about. Sharing your experience and results with friends or family, Facebook profiles, sharing PH360 with affiliate lists or client base. If you're using PH360 in a clinic, if you're a health professional, volunteering at PH360 events, social media, writing about your experience, or even suggesting PH360 to your health professionals or doctors when they see your results. There are many ways that you can help support what we're doing and help grow this and help us achieve our mission of changing world health. So if there's anything else that you'd like to talk with us about, support@ph360.me. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. So we've got a personal health retreat coming up. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be fantastic to meet those that are coming. I just want to say that personally. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to you joining me and for us to be able to assist you with your healing issues that exist. For those that still need or are still interested, I'm not sure if there's any positions still available, but there should be a link if the tech support's able to pop a link up for those that want to find out more. You can reach out to the team at support@ph360.me or via the contact form on the website to see if you qualify or if you want to find out more about these positions. It's going to be an absolutely amazing week of personal health and healing, from your own personalised chef and meals created for you at breakfast, lunches and dinners, to exercise sessions, whether it's on the beach doing plyometric training or breathing exercises and Tai Chi, depending on your level. We're going to have personalised sessions, body work, aromatherapy, energy medicine, spiritual healing from start to finish. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So please feel free to find out more information and see if there's anything that can help you with your issues or with health and healing that you might need some extra support on top of PH360. We also just had an amazing course. I'm still here at the moment in Boise, Idaho, after a course this weekend. It was an amazing course for coaching and health practitioners. And there is a recording, a full HD uncut recording of the course, if you're interested, that you're able to get for $97 instead of the $697 that exists. So please click on that link if you're interested to find out a lot more information about PH360. Talks a lot about the concepts and the details behind PH360 and how this actually comes about to provide the insights and the results that you see. So we'll go ahead and jump straight into this. I just want to say thank you again as always, and we have an amazing show ahead of us. So Daniella, I'd love to just introduce and welcome you again. I know that this is the third time you've come back, so thank you so much for joining us once again. We've got so many questions. We've had so many questions from people that we just want to be doing as many of these as we can to provide these resources in the future so that people can really understand all the science behind PH360 and can help them get confidence and trust in the program so that they can really be happy and healthy. So I'd love to introduce Daniella, who's our VP of Research at PH360. For those who haven't met Daniella, please listen in on our website, on YouTube channel, actually, PH360Me. If you type that into YouTube, you'll be able to see the last two webinars that we've done, which is amazing. Daniella has a Master of Science in Human Development. She specialises in the research and statistical analysis behind PH360. She really is the brains that's been working with the science, with the medical practitioners and gurus that have helped develop this over the past decade, and does a lot of the research and analytics behind PH360 and everything that you see today. So she is fluent in 4 languages, in French, German, English and Italian, and she really is that genius behind the medical team and brings PH360 to life. So Danielle, I'd love to welcome you again. Thanks so much for joining us for the third time around.
Thanks, Matt. It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Well, we are going to dive straight in again. so much to get through on the show. I know we've been picking your brain till the cows come home over the last couple of sessions. So let's jump straight in. I'd love to, just again, for those who haven't listened in the past, or for those that need a refresher, would you just be able to give us a very quick description of pH360 in your words?
Yeah, pH360 is basically an online application that uses a predictive algorithm and many layers of factors to be able to assess a person's current and future states of health. Really focuses on every single aspect we can get on the individual person, so we are looking at the most personalized protocol possible.
Fantastic. And in terms of, I mean, one of the biggest things people are really trying to understand why and how this works. And just, if you could just share really quickly, you know, in a very, very short summary, I know this is a topic usually for a week-long seminar, but yeah, how are our results calculated in pH360?
Yes. Well, in the past, I was kind of saying that they are like brushstrokes and many calculations, but let me try and give a very specific example just to change it up a little bit and give people some more information about the science behind it. So let's take a look at something like cardiovascular disease, which is very common. In fact, a good friend of mine recently had a stroke, so it's affecting me very much. Scary thing, many people will have it. But if we know what the risk factors are, and many of them are published out there, we know that a big waist to height ratio can contribute, just like being overweight, having a high body fat index, certain lifestyle factors that you have, such as smoking and unhealthy eating, too much high animal meat diet, and a sedentary lifestyle, not exercising enough. Lots of things can contribute to it. And we also put several body factors, big risks that we know, a crease in the earlobe, certain conditions of the hair, nails, skin. We put everything together to be able to assess what the risk is. So essentially, the more of these factors you have that we know contribute to cardiovascular disease, the higher your risk would be. We put that together with many other factors, so for diabetes and for myalgia and for joint problems and collagen and how the cells in your body working, how your thyroid and hormones are working, how your neurotransmitters are working, how your digestive system is working, everything that we can possibly put together, we put it together to create many, many, many layers upon layers of data for each individual person. And so with all these if-then-else calculations and general risk factors, we create, with one brush stroke at a time, a unique painting that is, you know, the individual. So everything is there calculated for each individual person. And there are so many layers that we consider in pH360. The way we see it is no human brain can do all of this because it's just way too much. So hence the fantastic genius of using modern machines to be able to make these super fast calculations and use them in a user-friendly manner that follows you more than a doctor ever could, because it can follow you every single day with changes in weather and changes in your body structure and healthy habits, and everything that you're doing is changing with you and always giving you up-to-date recommendations that are specifically suited for you.
Okay, fantastic. And I think, Daniella, that's just such a great summary. And again, this webinar, which was what was going to be one webinar, is now expanded to 3. It's going to be 4 in a series. And the intentions and our goals for these webinars are really to help you understand more about pH360 so that you can have confidence in the science behind it, and really happy to trust pH360 that it's got your back when it comes to your health. So Daniella, thank you so much again for that great intro. We are going to jump straight into this. We've got so many questions coming through. And I really am just going to dive straight in and answer some things. So hopefully you guys are all listening in if you've sent questions through, because we're going to cover a lot of things today. For those that haven't, there's going to be a lot of information that's coming through. And for those listening live, there's ways you can engage. Please put your messages in the chat box. For those listening to the replay, please enjoy all the information we're about to go through. So Daniella, we've got Josie Brisbois that's asking a great question. We've had this question a couple of times. There's a lot of different type diets out there, as you can imagine, and as you know. What's the difference between pH360 and the genotype or the blood type diet?
Oh, the genotype and blood type diet, which are from Dr. Dadamo's science, are types. So there's, I mean, in fact, the genotype is something that we very much integrate into pH360, but there's only 6 of those types. That would be like 6 giant brushstrokes for everything. And then in addition to that, we would put all the other hundreds and thousands of brushstrokes that we put in for pH360. So not necessarily saying that it's wrong, but saying in a way that it's limited. There is a big difference because of the multiple layers that PH360 considers when it creates its algorithm, specifically for the unique individual, as opposed to 6 groups. That would be like putting the entire world population, dividing them into 6, as opposed to dividing them into billions.
That's right. And in terms of the blood types, there's there's even less blood types.
Yes, there's 4 blood types, so it would be also fewer categories.
Okay, sure. And just for listeners at home too, it's a great question, and there's a lot of people that have been following and looking for answers for so long that have tried conventional ways without success. And we have so many members that are using PH360 in a place that are trying something because they have tried so many things before, and a lot have tried the blood type diet before. And we've had quite a number of different questions come through about saying, well, the blood type diet does suggest this, and there's a few things different for PH360. I think maybe I'd love to just address that really quickly. Is that I know Peter Diademo, when he started off with the blood type diet, and then as he went over time, he then created the genotype diet, and that's something that's sort of progressed over time from his science into the genotypes, which went the 4 blood types and into the 6 genotypes. And as you say there, that's one filter that PH360 includes is the 6 genotypes or biotypes. There's six categories there. That's just one of many filters. In fact, there's almost infinite possibilities that can be created with PH360, and there's not one single person that has the same information that's created. It's just so powerful to really understand that. It's a great question, Josie, so thank you. Danielle, could you just make that even more tangible for us? Is there an example you can give us that maybe that shows what would be recommended in one of those type diets, and then how PH360 may consider different things? Is there an example you can give us of something like that?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the types that they have, they have the hunter and the gatherer and the explorer. I mean, so let's say somebody's a hunter. Well, then they get from this diet a list of all the foods that they can have as a hunter, which very cool, very not necessarily wrong, but the way PH360 sees it is that there is more to this than what is there, because it's very simplified. So if I look at the food kale, for instance, kale is considered beneficial for everyone. Lots of properties, nutritional properties, antioxidants, vitamin K. It's very powerful food. But if you have hypothyroidism, kale is not good for you because it will lower your thyroid. So it should be removed if you have hypothyroidism. So now we just put another layer onto that little puzzle piece, and we have the hunter that is recommended to have kale. But if hypothyroidism is a case, then kale must be removed. So this would be the if then else buts that we end up putting into the algorithm, which are multiple layers of what we actually have right now, what we might have in the future, that change these general conditions into something very specific for an individual. If you have something like diverticulitis, you might want to juice it completely because the fibers could irritate your intestine. Or if you are quite alkaline, you need to have some more acidity into your system because you have, there are some stomach conditions in which the acids are not there to break down the enzymes. Then kale, which is more alkaline type of food, might need to be avoided for a while you build up the acidity into your stomach. So yeah, there are many different conditions, health conditions, in which certain foods, which are generally considered good, are not good for everyone.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for going into a bit more depth on that, because it is such a specific thing, PH360, and just for listeners to be able to hear the detail that we consider in PH360 even behind it, it's just it's so powerful. So thanks for sharing that, and again going through an example like kale, that is a superfood that everybody promotes these days, and it's great to see that there's plenty of examples depending on your personal health situation when kale may not be indicated. And again, for those that are aware, that maybe kale is not great for you right now, but in the future, it may be okay for you as your conditions change and as your health changes. So PH360 identifies what's right for you right now, and in the future, it'll be different for you. And so I just want to always make sure that people are very, very aware of that. So thank you, Daniela. We've got a fantastic question here, moving along quite quickly. We've got Sandra Sapanara, who's asked a great question about losing weight. And this has come from a couple of people who've commented, especially in the Facebook group. And thanks so much for those who've joined the Facebook group. Some people may not even be aware that we have a Facebook group, so there'll be a link that pops up at some stage soon. So please go ahead and click on that and join the group. It's an amazing source of support and inspiration If you're not a member already, it's a members only private Facebook group. So Sandra's commented that she's lost quite a lot of weight. Now that she's joined PH360, she doesn't really want to afford to lose much more. So what should she do? And other people in a similar situation to Sandra, what can they do about that? Or how can we give them some advice or some insights about losing weight with PH360?
Okay, well, if you want to lose weight, there is the question of I want to lose weight. And if you want to gain mass, then there's a question of wanting to gain mass. If you don't want to change, then essentially you'd be answering no to both of those, and it means basically don't change. But it's not very difficult to add another question in there, like I would like to stay the same, and then we would just, allow you to have something that makes it more clear. So if somebody gives us feedback on how to improve the communication, we're absolutely willing to integrate that. But essentially, nothing would change in what PH360 would give you, because PH360 already knows if you're underweight or overweight. Just based on the measurements, we can see based not only on the height and weight, because there are people who are, let's just say, big boned or have naturally big structure. They should be having a bigger weight than certain people who are very light-weighted people anyway, naturally born that way. And so this is why we disregard the standard BMI indexes that are there. We have it adjusted based on constitutional biotypes. So are you supposed to be a big person, or are you supposed to be a skinny person, or are you supposed to be a muscular person? What's right for you? So we adjust the algorithm based on what your underlying constitution is and then what you have around you. And so we assess some of those things very specifically for you. And that's why we have some scales in the track section. So if you want to lose weight, PH360, or if you want to lose weight, we'll just push it that much more. If PH360 thinks that you need to lose weight for the benefit of your own health, because there are certain risk factors that are there, it's probably going to encourage you to lose weight anyway. And it will give you very healthy food, low caloric foods, probably reduce the carbs, reduce some of the saturated fats that are in there, and give you things that will kind of increase your metabolism. If you want to gain weight, it'll probably increase some of the proteins, including animal proteins that do bulk up as well and feed the muscles, but also carbs. That's right, carbs are there to bulk up. So anybody who wants to do some bodybuilding and is eating only the protein, you're going to find that your muscles will bulk up a little bit more if you're going to have some carbs in your system. So we do provide some of the things that help you change your body if you want to, but essentially everyone is going to be given healthy choices. So if you want to maintain your weight and you're saying, oh, but this diet is restrictive, take a look at it again. We've most likely, if you're a healthy person with a healthy weight range, we're not making you diet. We'll give you the right things for you, but take away all the unhealthy foods that maybe you need to be reminded need to stay unhealthy, or some of the foods that you think are healthy that are not healthy for you because there's another risk factor. Just because you look good doesn't mean you're good on the inside. PH360 knows that there are some risk factors you need to consider. So yeah, if you don't want to lose weight or you feel like you're staying the same, then it is possible to do that with PH360. The other thing, however, we did mention last week was portions. So some people notice that they lose weight very quickly, especially in the summer. It's easy to shed weight because our body is getting rid of extra fat that keeps us warm over the winter, naturally sheds it as we go into the summer. Sorry, Australians, if we reverse. But yes, if they are losing weight too much and they notice that they're exercising more and they notice that they're eating healthy and their body is transitioning into a lean body, it's okay to increase more of the healthy foods, the 5 smileys and 4 smileys and all the ones that are positive choices. Just increase those amounts so that you have the right weight that you want. The top choices are still the top choices, and the ones to avoid are still the ones to avoid.
Excellent. Thanks for clarifying that, Daniella. And probably just to add a little bit to that as well, just for people, that PH360 is about your health. It's not about your aesthetics. Your aesthetics are a bonus from being healthy on the inside. And so if there's some things that have been limited from your foods list, it's often because you have internal processes that aren't healthy right now. And so as a consequence, sometimes you may notice a change in your weight, you may notice a change in your features, whether it's gaining or losing weight. Actually is less of a focus, and want to put less of an importance on that for you. The scales don't matter so much as opposed to your health on the inside. And so sometimes you do need to limit down the calories. You do need to limit down some of the foods that are suggested for you to actually change your internal health status. And once you get healthy, you have a lot of other things that add back in. But as Daniella said there, that if you do find yourself restricted on foods on your list, you can just eat some more of the volume of those foods specifically. So you don't have to feel like you're going hungry. And this is actually brings us to maybe the next question, Daniel, if that's okay. We've got a great question here from Marianne. Woodman, who actually talks about and asks that question. Thanks for creating this event. I missed it last week. I'm struggling to create a balanced meal for the week. Your advice is much appreciated. You just maybe help us understand a little bit with balancing a meal, and maybe you're helping out with some hunger and things like that. I know we did cover that a little bit last time, but if you could just go through that again, because we do have a lot of people who have got significant restrictions in the foods they are used to eating. And again, just to let everybody know, that's because internally PH360 has identified that you've got some processes that aren't great right now. And that's why it's going to limit a lot of food. So, Danielle, have you got some advice for some people that can really help out with that, if those that are in that situation right now?
Absolutely. There's a few things that we can do. One of them could be drinking water throughout the day, which sometimes we forget to do. Having some tea or some other liquid smoothies that would keep our mouths and bellies busy in the meantime. Sometimes just having 5 small meals throughout the day instead of, or maybe even 6, just snacking throughout the day as you're transitioning, because we are aware that there's a change in habits. So some people shouldn't snack too much because you end up overeating. So we do need to balance that. But if you're seeing that you're very hungry, choosing one of your healthy 4 or 5 smiley foods as a snack is a very good option. The other thing too is keeping busy, because I have seen many clients that they think so much about their diet and they're thinking about their shopping list, and they're sitting at home and they've got their habits of maybe watching TV and are used to eating something when they're watching TV, or they snack at their desk while they're working, but sometimes just getting up and out and active. So staying away from the fridge, for instance, but not just like in the house, as in maybe you're gardening now that it's beautiful outside, going out and gardening, maybe going out for a walk with the dog, doing some biking or something that is outdoors with fresh air, that is a physical activity and keeps your body active, your mind stable, and gets you moving away from boredom, essentially helps a lot. And people, busy people are the ones who say, oh, I forgot to have lunch. Bored people never do. So that's also a factor. And the other thing too that can be helped is, for some people, especially if they have sweet cravings, or this doesn't help everybody, but does help some, is to have something very sweet, like ridiculously sweet at the end of a meal. Something that, like a maple syrup rock candy, or a spoonful of honey, one of those things that, too sweet, but it kills your appetite. And this is just natural. It's just something that triggers our brain to think, oh, mealtime over. This is why we like to have our sweet desserts. Not everybody, but for many people, it seems to work. And that sometimes helps just kill a hunger, is to have something that's ridiculously sweet, especially if you have a sweet craving and it's not going away. Have something that kills your appetite. What else could I think of? Yeah, possibly also I'm thinking bulky foods, or really looking at some of the vegetables, because sometimes we don't realize that you can have a lot of vegetables. There's a lot of talk about green leafy vegetables or root vegetables, but there are some of them that are just kind of regular ones, like zucchini, that anybody can have at any time. So do look at having lots of vegetables and things that bulk up and that have the fibers and that stay in your stomach, and carbs maybe in the morning that kind of keep you going. Smoothies are also very good because of all the fibers that it has in it. Having smoothies in the morning usually can satiate a person until lunchtime. So, playing around with some of those options are good. But I definitely think that the anti-boredom one is probably an important one.
For sure. Well, thanks again, Daniella, and that's great. There's so many tips there, and for those who are feeling like they're hungry, hopefully you can help get around some of that with those great tips. So thanks, Daniella, and thanks again for all your questions, guys. We've had so many questions. It's really great to hear from you. Continuing to move along, we've got Terry Reef, who asks a great question about her food guide. She's been using PH360 for a few weeks. She's still trying to understand it to adjust. She's been eating more veggies than she's currently allowed due to some contraindications that she's perceived. For example, her food guide recommends a serving of leafy greens at least 3 times a week, but she's so limited in her leafy greens. It says that fruit and veggie smoothies have 5 smiley faces, but the fruits and veggies again are very limited, so maybe just one smiley face, and that's the same sort of thing with her grains or with her citrus or white meats. Is there something she's missing in the understanding of this? She just wants to make sure that any guidance here is appreciated and she can be following what she needs to. So for those that do show up with a food guide that recommends, for example, 3 leafy greens 3 times a week, but they may only have some leafy greens with one smiley face. How does that actually work, Daniella? Could you just quickly talk us through that so that we can really get some clarity, hopefully, once and for all, for lots of people on how the food guide recommends the overall plan and how the smileys actually work within the actual food themselves?
Absolutely. So one of the things, I mean, you did pass this question on to me earlier, so I was able to look at a profile and be able to use it as a specific example. So her guideline says to try to eat green leafy vegetables at least 3 times a week. And then I look at the green leafy vegetables, and she has kale at 3 smileys, Boston lettuce at 2 smileys, spinach at 2 smileys, bok choy, and it keeps going down like that. The most is kale at 3 smileys. Everything else is 1 and 2. But if I were to break it down, and I would say, okay, she's going to have, let's say, kale every week because it's 3 smileys. She's not having it every day. She's having it once a week, every week. Spinach, Boston lettuce, bok choy, keltis, these were 2 smileys. So she can have these maybe interchangeably within the week, right? So she can have 1 week spinach and then Boston lettuce and bok choy and keltis and whatever else going in there. And then the 1 smiley food she can have every once in a while in addition to that. So then she's got the Chinese cabbage and the arugula and the choy sum and the 1 smiley food that come up sporadically throughout the month. Well, now you've been able to eat your veggies 3 times a week, but you've had kale every week. You've had spinach and Boston lettuce often, but not every week throughout the month. And then you've had your 1 smiley foods like once a month, every once in a while. It fits. It fits very well, actually.
Excellent. Fantastic, Daniella. Thank you so much. We're going to jump along here. We've got a question from Kathy Frame on indigestion. And I'm just going to quickly have a look at Kathy's question that talks about, I haven't seen anyone else that's mentioned they're suffering from indigestion here. She's had some indigestion. Sometimes it'll be swollen, but she'll still be hungry, her stomach. She's been doing the recommended teas and drinking lots of waters. Any suggestions will be greatly appreciated. So I know that this is Kathy here, and I actually passed this on earlier for you, Daniella. Would you better just give us some comments for Kathy and for those others that are experiencing similar situations like this?
Right. Yeah, Kathy was another one that you gave me as a specific example. And so I looked at a profile and I noticed that there were some digestive and circulatory issues to consider. And she has been recommended to cook and warm her foods. So I would ask the question, are you doing that? The reason that we suggest cooking and warming the foods in some cases, especially with digestive system issues, is because it helps break down the fibers and makes the foods easier to digest. The heat breaks down the cellular walls that are very thick in raw foods, and it aids the body in everything that would be the absorption of nutrients that are bound to these cellular walls. So when they are not cooked, they're raw, it just takes a bit longer for the body to be able to absorb these, which is sometimes great for diets, right? Because the body has to work hard to get those nutrients, it's burning more calories. But if you have digestive issues, it's actually not very good. Or if you have malabsorption issues, it's not very good. You need to be able to release these better. This is why we've been cooking for centuries, right? So centuries, actually millennia, we've been cooking as human beings. So right. Cooking is not a bad thing. It just helps our digestive system be able to absorb everything we need. Now, she mentioned that she had gas, and I noticed that cumin is a 5-smiley spice. She's also got a lot of other spices that really help. So adding some of these spices to her meals can help with gas and indigestion and problems. So cumin, turmeric, fennel, coriander, aniseed, caraway, peppermint tea, chamomile tea, these are all really good digestive aids. They either calm the system, they warm the system, they help with digestion, they're really good, right? Then what else? She also has, okay, well, the other thing I could just say in general, I didn't check this in her list to be able to see if she's got these foods or not, but foods that can cause gas include dried fruit, broccoli, cabbage, apples, beans. So some of those, if you know that these are foods that can cause gas, these are other foods that you can say, make sure you have them combined with something else. So make sure you put beans with cumin, for instance. That's what I do with my chili all the time. I love chili, but if I don't put cumin, like tons of cumin, the powdered stuff, so it doesn't actually taste it, you can't taste it in the chili, but I have no gas and I can eat my chili as much as I want. So there's a little tidbit for you guys if you want it. These are little things that you can do. And so if you know that there's some gas promoting foods, add some fennel to your broccoli, you can do that.
That's awesome, and thanks so much, Daniel. These tips are so powerful for people just to change things. And of course, we do have health coaches available for those that need a lot of extra information or a lot of extra assistance with their situations. But that's a great answer for that, Daniela, and hopefully that helps Kathy. Thank you for the question, Kathy, and hopefully helps some others in that situation too. So we're going to keep on powering through here. We're up to a question we've got from Christina Heikkinen. Christina, thank you for your question here. Christina asks about serotonin and said that Matt talked about how our body's seeking serotonin when we might associate this as craving for chocolate and wine. I think we spoke briefly on last webinar about sometimes we might get home from a tough day at the office. If our boss might have been quite stressful for the day, and we just feel like eating some chocolate or drinking some wine to make us feel better. What we're actually seeking there is a hit of serotonin, not necessarily the chocolate, but our body actually associates, or our brain associates, chocolate with feeling good, because serotonin is a feel-good hormone. So it's a great question there, because for some people who are in those habits that are looking to change that, they can't change it overnight, is there some better foods that are higher in serotonin other than chocolate or wine? And of course, the answer is yes. So Daniela, would you be able to be a bit of a serotonin guru for us? And is there some things that people, again, just to preface this, that pH360 will automatically calculate these into your diet and into your food plan, but is there some foods that you can help us understand, Daniela, that may be higher in serotonin, just so we can get a grip of this?
Yes, serotonin is the feel-good hormone. It makes you feel satisfied, as though things are okay. And other things that make you satisfied and feel like things are okay include turkey, which is why we're all tired and satisfied after our turkey dinner on Thanksgiving. Other things are bananas and eggs, cherries. There's certain fish and seafood that contain that. Flaxseed is known for it as well. Buckwheat and whey protein, believe it or not. So yeah, there's quite a few foods that are pretty good with boosting serotonin on the natural level, and they are those feel-good foods. Dark chocolate is one of them, but doesn't have to be the only one for anybody who has a sweet craving. There are other things that you can do as well. But if you do have a sweet craving, I just want to give some people some ideas, because I have had a couple emails coming in about people who struggle with just sugar cravings. And I get that, I think everybody gets that. I have a sweet tooth, and every once in a while you're just like, I can't help it, I need it. So there is a couple things I could suggest for that. One of them is having some homemade healthy sweets and treats available that you've made. First of all, making them means you eat them less because you have to make them. So it just takes much more effort. So we tend to do it less, and usually it's getting into the habit and such. But just having some healthy homemade sweets that you've made from your food to eat list, whether it's taking some of those juices and freezing them with a popsicle stick in them. And I got homemade popsicles from fresh squeezed juice, or making some oatmeal cookies with a sweetener that you are allowed to have, whether it's maple syrup or honey or whatever else, with some fruit, whether it's apple and cinnamon or some raisins, or maybe you can throw in some dark chocolate because you're only having a tiny portion of it, right? If that's on your allowed list. And kind of being creative with some of the things that you have in your allowed list to create some of those sweets and treats that you are allowed to have, so it doesn't feel dull and boring all the time. And the other thing too is paying attention to some of the habits that we have. Sometimes we're used to coming home, like you turn the key, you come home, you look at the fridge and you see what's there. And that's a habit. And so we're not really hungry. We're just into the habit of eating when we come home. Or sometimes we sit down, we watch TV, and now we're used to having something to eat and munch on. That's a habit. Maybe changing the habit. So not watching TV as much, or changing the times that we do certain things, or learning a different routine. You turn the key, you come home, and you do something else. You water the plants, or you take the dog for a walk right away, or sometimes changing the habits also helps some of those cravings as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniela. Fantastic advice as always. We're going to keep on jumping through here, so hopefully the listeners are enjoying. If you guys are listening in live and want to pop some messages in there to let us know if you're enjoying the content, or if there's anything else that you'd like us to be talking about and covering, then please do. We are here for you, and we are running these webinars 100% for you. So we're hoping you're getting lots of enjoyment and lots of great information out of these. We have Tracy Thompson who has a question for us, Daniela. And again, I think I've passed this on to you a little bit earlier. But Tracy Thompson asks, she asked a question about dark circles, which we answered earlier. But she says also, can you please tell me why I'm so restricted on healthy oils like coconut oil and avocados?
Yeah, this is one that you did pass on to me because, of course, you want to go into the profile for it. And actually, there were many oils that I saw in Tracy's profile. I think the issue was seeing the kinds of oils or how high they are. So they're not necessarily 5 smileys in the oils, but they're lower, yet there's many of them. Tracy had olive oil, canola oil, safflower oil, linseed oil, grapeseed oil, and also had avocado and coconut. As well as many nuts to choose from. So she had lots of different types of fats. It's just we put the healthy omega fats in there as much as we could. These are the essential fatty acids, which provide many positive properties, but she actually had a whole long list of them. So instead of having one type of oil to use all the time, she was encouraged to have some of the variety of that. But nonetheless, the saturated fats were reduced for her because that was important for her case. So yeah.
Excellent. And that's great. Thanks. And it's really good for everybody else listening in. If you're feeling in that situation as well, that there is a rhyme and a reason behind everything on your list. And hopefully that's going to be the very strong message from these webinars, is that you can see how much goes into the back end of your results. And often some of the less healthy fats, like saturated fats, will be removed. Other oils will be suggested for you, and other foods that contain oils will be suggested for you too. So thank you, Daniella. We've got jumping along. We've got a question here from Charlotte Usler, who asks about the fitness section. And this is a little bit different, but I want to throw this in there because there has been a few questions about this, just with asking about the exercise and how active people are. And the reason why I want to throw this into this session, even though we're talking about foods, is that your activity levels actually influence the foods that you need, of course, because your food requirements will change as you start to exercise more or as you don't exercise at all, or if you're in between. And so her question was actually asking about in the fitness section, it asks about how many hours of exercise raise your heart rate and make you break a sweat. I'm lifting heavily throughout the day and does sort of half to an hour of exercise a day, stretching and walking, and also exercise which was recommended by PH360, but none of that really gets her sweating. Does she put 3 to 10 hours of exercise a week or less because her heart isn't racing from yoga? How does she actually answer that question? It was, I think, a great one, and again, relevant because the foods will be reflected according to how active you are. So could you just give us an understanding, Daniella, about what we're trying to find out from asking about exercise, or how that actually works?
That's right. I think it's very important to understand that the life that most people lead nowadays, which is rather sedentary with TV and office work and driving around, that's not natural. I mean, this is very modern. It's what we have now. But turn back the clock 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and what were people doing? Walking is a normal part of life. So the fact that you walk your dog every day, the fact that you clean your house, the fact that you're walking for work, that's just normal exercise. Everything below that is below. So let's consider walking 0 on a scale from 1 to 10. A sedentary lifestyle is a -5 on that scale of 1 to 10. So we're in the minuses most of the time in our modern life. And we have less exercise that we should be having. People used to also eat 3,000 to 5,000 calories a day. Now it's much lower. It's recommended about 2,000 calories a day. So the fact that we have a more modern sedentary lifestyle also reflects the amount of calories that we introduce. Romans used to eat a lot more calories in the day, but they also did a lot more during the day. So when we ask, are you doing exercise? We're really talking about pushing the limit, not just walking around, not just doing yoga and stretching. We're talking about something that really gets your heart rate going. We're talking about getting up on the bike and not just tra-la-la on the bike as I go get some groceries. We're talking about pushing it, sweating it. Are you moving? Are you doing something? Are you being a gladiator out there? Are you really pushing it? And if you are doing that for 3 hours a week or 5 hours or 10 hours, that will reflect how much you need to intake to rebalance the calories that you need, because your metabolic rate has obviously increased. If you're walking the dog and you're throwing the ball every once in a while and you're moving and you're out there, that's still normal life. That's not really exercise. If you're running with your dog on the beach and you're breaking a sweat because you've just done a jog for an hour and you're doing that 5 times a week, now you're exercising. That's the difference. Most people are not jogging with their dog. Most people are just walking and letting the dog do the exercise. So we do need to consider some of those differences.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that, Daniella. And that is such an important part. And we were built as humans to move, and that's a really important factor. So for those that are just getting started, that are focusing on foods again, this is a bit of a foods-focused webinar, but we really encourage you to start to incorporate and start to consider the importance of movement in your life. It doesn't have to be a lot to start with, especially if you haven't been doing much for a while, but it really is a normal part of our life and a very, very important part of our life. So, Daniella, we're going to keep on moving here. We've got a question from Jasani, who asks us about if coconut oil is a food that is not good for me, which is 3 frowns, does that mean I shouldn't use it on my skin either, or for oil pulling? And oil pulling, for those that aren't aware, is where you swish it around in your mouth and excrete or expel the oil after a while, that can help pull out some toxins and pull out some issues from the actual internals. So Danielle, would you just be able to give us an answer for that one for Jasani?
Yeah, Jasani, go ahead and use your coconut oil on the skin. It's not a problem. When we put the smileys and frownies out there, we're really talking about food. So we're talking about eating and swallowing it and sticking in your digestive system and letting it come out the other end. So if you want to use it for something else, that's okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Danielle. And just while we're here on Jasani, she had a couple of extra questions, so I'll just quickly answer these for her. So for the question about fingernails, this is in the assessment when you do it. If I have a crescent moon on one thumbnail, should I mark that I am missing them, is the question.
Yes, because you don't have it on all of your fingers.
Okay. And if I have small ridges only on my thumbnails, but not all the others, should I mark that I have them?
No, because it's not on most. It says really have to consider most of the fingers. And yay, we have 5, so we can consider most would be at least 3 out of 5.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for clarification there. Fantastic. This is actually still Jasani here. She's got a few more parts to it. So just quickly here to clarify, almond ice cream has 5 smiley faces, but all the ones I've found have sugar, which I'm not supposed to have. How does this actually work?
Oh, well, we do try to encourage not necessarily buying things. This is something that we really should reiterate or communicate better in PH 360, is that we're using the base foods and we're trying to encourage people to become creative in their foods. We're just saying what they're allowed to have or not. So I bet you anything, she's got almond milk and she's got some of those sweeteners and she's got other things. So you can make homemade almond ice cream, which isn't hard. You can use an ice cream maker, but there's also some really cool recipes, not too difficult to do. It might be a good thing for us to possibly remove the almond ice cream, which was requested. That's why it got in there. So it was requested, can you put almond ice cream? So we put it in there. But I have a feeling it might be causing a lot of confusion, because we should also put all the various different types of ice cream and instead talk about being able to make it from your own. So maybe, recipes that we have, if you have oat milk, or if you have some other form of alternative milk, or maybe you don't have milk and you're going to make your sherbet and your juice popsicles or something else that kind of gives you that cool sweet treat for the summer, based on your foods to eat, without it being so specific, such as almond ice cream specifically.
Right. And that's a great point. And again, for the listeners, we're always adapting to feedback. So thank you so much for that question, Jasani. That's a fantastic question. And Danielle, we may definitely go ahead and update some of those things. And the tough position we've always been in, as you know, we've discussed this before in the other webinars, I believe as well, is that we're in a position where do we include every single food that exists in every single variation? It's something that kind of detracts away from what we're trying to achieve, and it actually makes it near impossible sometimes to suggest these sorts of things. So I guess for those listeners, just to help reflect on what Danielle has said there, you can make your homemade ice creams and sorbets and things like that out of the foods that are great for you. So if you have almond milk, if you have fructose, you can go ahead and make that ice cream out of any of the nuts, the nut milks, out of any of the fruits that you have that are really, really healthy for you. But some of the things that we run into trouble with is if we just go to the shop and buy almond ice cream that is full of sugar. So we really wanted to be making sure that we're avoiding those sorts of things for people. And we talked about kale chips, I think, last time, and the fact that some homemade kale chips made from fresh kale and baked under the oven yourself are something you can eat if kale is on the high smileys. The reason why we reduce or remove or put frownies for your kale chips is the saturated fats and other things that aren't great for you if you just go buy them from the shop. And so I think almond ice cream is something that we're going to need to remove from the actual list as it stands. So apologies for those that have almond ice cream. Are going to be disappointed with that. However, if you have it listed on your list right now as a Smileys, it means that you can have it if you make it yourself from home.
That's right.
So you'll see an update at some stage fairly soon in the next week or so about that in the system. So Daniella, I'm sure you and your team are going to be all over that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is probably add one of those food prep items such as frozen foods, and explain that would be the ice creams and the gelatos and the sherbets and whatever else you can have, so that you can then know, oh, I can have the frozen stuff versus someone who can't. But then you'd have to be able to make it yourself or know which ones you can have based on your food to eat. And we should probably even take kale chips out. That was another food that was requested, but it's an industrial product. Obviously, if you can have kale and you can have baked foods, then you can put kale in the oven and bake it yourself, right? So
Exactly.
This is where we put those combinations. And I think it's important not to get carried away with some of the recipes and the complications of brand name foods and specific types of foods, when essentially all they are is combinations of the most essential common denominators.
Fantastic. And I think that's just important. And again, for the listeners that we will make those updates. And there's a couple of other things like that, Daniella, that we just want to clarify as well, that we have had some questions about. We talked about rice on last webinar, the webinar before. And if you could just sort of maybe give us an update on that as well, because we're going to be removing a few things like long grain rice that was confusing and giving some more details specifically like that. And there may be some others, foods that you see in there from time to time that we do that. So again, just wanted to cover that. If there's anything else you want to add to that at all, just for.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do something with the long grain rice, which people have had confusion about. So kind of make it the long grain white rice, long grain medium rice, long grain short rice. Long grain white, long grain white, medium grain white, short grain, and then brown, long grain brown, et cetera, just to kind of specify, give some examples, maybe make it more understandable. We're going to try that, see what the feedback is, and if there's better ways, we will come up with a better ways.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We're going to jump down to Megan, and I think we've kind of covered this a little bit, but she was unsure about how to answer the question about moons on my nails. Thumbs and index fingers, I think we probably just answered that. That was missing, Lunala, was that correct? Hang on, maybe we haven't answered this one just yet.
The moons on the nails?
The moons on the nails, yeah.
Yeah. If you have moons on one nail, then you're missing them. If you have them on 3 out of 5 nails, then you have them. Basically, we're looking at the majority.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, and thanks for the question there, Megan. Deborah asks us a question. I run a low body temperature and wonder why body temperature isn't one of the markers used. Also, why would cucumbers be considered good when they lower body temperature?
Okay. Cucumbers are generally good in hot weather, summery weather. You will almost never find them in the winter. So I don't know if this person could be maybe from the Southern Hemisphere going towards the winter season, or if this is an older question coming from the winter season. I'm living in Canada right now, so I'm up in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm not sure. But it is a food that drops your body temperature significantly, just like bananas and watermelon and grapes, and there's many other foods that do that. So it is possible that cucumbers were removed for that reason, especially if she is in lower body temperature. But the body temperature, especially if it's a baseline temperature, it's a genetic tendency that we would already calculate. So we know which types of people will generally have lower body temperatures than others. And when you combine that with other environmental factors and lifestyle habits, pH 360 is actually picking up on temperature tendencies automatically. So we don't need to ask, what's your body temperature, and make people take out a thermometer. We just know what the tendency is of that person to have high or low temperature, and whether or not they need warming or cooling foods.
Excellent, thanks. And that's such a powerful consideration for pH 360, and just highlights the predictive nature of what we use, especially with the integrations with Chinese medicine coming in, that can give us a lot of insight there, as well as the overlays with Ayurveda. So thank you. And thanks for the question, Deborah. It's a great question. We're jumping down to Lisa's question that says, on our food charts, the distinction between organic and non-organic produce, farm fish, grass-fed meats, etc., etc. So when if you say eggs aren't great for you, yeah, I get that store eggs may not be so good, but what if they're from an organic neighbor? Obviously a huge difference in quality. How do we consider this, and how does that actually work?
Yeah, I think that would be kind of going into the whole brand name factor. Because we decided we're not going to go into all the various brand names and all the different qualities and all the different types of milk and the different types of orange juice, for instance. You know, I mean, you go into a grocery store, it's almost overwhelming the number of products that are out there. And yes, they do have different nutritional qualities. So when we're gathering our data for nutritional qualities, we're looking at an average, and we are assuming the best. So we are assuming that those eggs that you're getting are free range, organic, farm fresh eggs. We cannot assume anything lower unless it is so predominant as a factor, such as getting non-genetically modified corn. It's impossible. Monsanto has basically taken over for that one, so we know what's available worldwide. We only assume what that is, right? But we basically have to assume the best products that are available for the people, and people need to be able to try and get the best products of what is available. That's what we consider.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniella. And that's just confirming that we always encourage organic foods whenever possible, grass-fed meats, farmed fish, etc. It's really important to make sure that everything is considered as healthy as possible. When we talk from a larger scale about the works of people like Bruce Lipton, when we talk about the biology of belief and a lot of the energetics of what happens from conception with animals and plants through life, the energy in our food that transfers to energy in our body is very, very important to consider. So we always encourage organic and fresh, free range eggs and all the likes, depending on what foods you have. So thanks for your question, Lisa. That's a great question. We're going to jump to Nora here, who asks, I hear a lot about the wonders of intermittent fasting. What do you think? Is the question. So Daniella, have you got a few little comments on that from Nora for us?
Yeah, there are certain biotypes that are better at fasting or juicing than others. Some people would suffer from it and could fall into anemia and states of malnutrition quickly. Other people are very resistant, usually the ones that have a longer intestine and maintain the foods kind of more hyper visceral. They just have, they retain more. These people are generally okay with the fasting. And we would know what is there for recommendations or not, but it is one of those things that you do have to be careful with. We would recommend that you do it with a health practitioner or with a doctor's advice, but there are certain types of people that can benefit greatly from fasting or juicing or restricted diets more than others. So it's really not everybody. This is the problem with websites nowadays when they say everybody can do this. No, they can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just such a great question. Well, thank you, and thanks for clarifying, Daniella, that it really is an important thing for a lot of people to actually consider doing some fasting at certain times in their health history, and for other people, it's really not that great at all. And it is such an individual thing that would really encourage those that feel like they need that situation, or in that situation where they do have, maybe medical issues or chronic conditions, where fasting's been recommended, or they've read about it on the internet, is usually how it comes about, or their friend tried it and got great results. That is really a question that's a medical question, and we really encourage you to either talk to your own medical professionals or doctors about it, or engage with a PH360 health coach that can actually talk you through the ins and outs of your specific body and how fasting may be able to benefit or hinder you in that process. And again, some people that do have issues and some people that are more prone to things with digestive illnesses and digestive conditions may need to have a period of time where they do actually fast and flush their system out and reduce a lot of the toxicity before they can then add new foods back in. But it is very, very individual on that basis. So it's a great question, Nora, and thanks very much for bringing that up. And Daniella, thanks for pointing us out once again that PH360 considers your unique situation and that not everything is right for everybody. So we're going to continue down here to a question from Donna. Hello, I'm using a natural estrogen cream. Is this concerned, or I think she means is this considered as a medication?
Well, we have in the questionnaire specifically for hormone replacement therapy, which would be given to a menopausal or postmenopausal woman, which is most likely where she's getting or been recommended, a natural estrogen cream. It does work, and it is a hormone replacement therapy. So the answer for the question about are you doing hormone replacement therapy would be yes in that case.
Okay, thank you, Danielle, and hopefully that helps Donna with what you can pop there. We're going to jump to Cindy's question. Cindy, can I use a probiotic while cleansing? And this is a great question about probiotics. And would you just be able to give us, I guess, a little bit of insight there, Danielle, on probiotics? And we talk in a more of a medical setting sometimes when I address medical practitioners about the microbiome. But the probiotics is something that's very common. A lot of people use them. So if you could just address that a little bit at the moment, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Probiotics are great for some and not for all. I guess that's always going to be my answer, isn't it? It's just funny. I feel like I'm repeating myself. But probiotics are good for irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, gas, constipation, diarrhea. I mean, it's known to improve the immune system. It's known to help with weight loss. I mean, they're really good things to have. And you have great probiotics in yogurt and kefir and Greek yogurt. And I mean, there's even fermented foods have phenomenal properties. However, there's always a however. Everything is a double-edged sword. It can also overstimulate the immune system, and it can negatively affect some of the metabolic pathways that we have, especially when it comes to carbohydrate metabolism and sugar processing. And so just like it can stimulate something that is under-functioning, it can overstimulate something that is functioning well or is already overstimulated. So not everything is good for everyone.
Right.
In her case, by the way, I would probably just have to check her profile. I'd probably recommend somebody because I couldn't tell her what she would need specifically. Cindy was asking, can she use it? We'd have to check. I would probably check with things like, do you have kefir? Do you have other things in there? But I would have to check with a medical practitioner because it's medicine.
Of course. And again, if you're sending questions in and need Daniella or any of us to have a look into your profile back end, then please send in your login details. We are HIPAA compliant, which means that we don't have access to your accounts. And so for any questions that you'd like for us to look in specifically at your profile, please send your details in. So thank you for your question, Cindy, and that's a great question about probiotics for everybody. We've got a question from Marianne who asks, can we supplement with amino acids that normally come from proteins that we cannot have right now?
I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. We do consider amino acids when we have our data. So our database for every single food, this is why sometimes it takes a while. It's not like you guys make a request and then the next day it comes up. We do a lot of research for every single food, and our database is one of the biggest ones that are out there because we've combined many things. So we have all the nutritional information that is very common, such as how much fat and how much carbohydrates and protein you have in the food, but then we also go look at all the minerals and vitamins and amino acids and the properties that I have and whether or not it's histaminic and. So it's a very big database. They're all considered. So if your proteins have been removed, amino acids have already been considered. I would double check with a health practitioner or a health coach for the amino acids you would like to integrate, because it is possible that you shouldn't be integrating them and they have been removed from the proteins that were removed in your diet.
Okay, excellent. And there's also a second part of of a question from Marianne here that asks about what about the sugars in almond ice cream and cranberry sauce? We've obviously just addressed almond ice cream, but nonetheless, any ice creams like that. What about sugars in almond ice cream and cranberry sauce? These are 5 and 4 smileys on my list, but I'm supposed to avoid fructose and sugar. How does that work?
Well, fructose and sugar are high glycemic index types of sugars, but there are other low glycemic types of sugars. I mean, almost everybody has some form of sweetener in their profile, whether it's a stevia, whether it's a xylitol, or there's so many different kinds, right? So it's really a matter of playing with what you're allowed to have or not allowed to have, which is why we really recommend the homemade foods. So if she's not allowed to have sugar, then don't go buy cranberry sauce, because cranberry sauce is going to have sugar in it. If you can have cranberry sauce, it means make your own cranberry sauce for turkey dinners or whatever else, but using the sugars that you're allowed to have. So we do account for some of the exceptions to provide people with treats and give them things that are really nice, like the almond ice cream, which is going to be replaced with frozen foods eventually, and applesauce and cranberry sauce, and maybe dried fruit and things that provide the snacks and the fun things in between. But you do have to pay attention to the types of sweeteners you have and possibly the reason why they might have been removed. Now, we are going to add the why soon, but some people can deduce the reasons when you notice all the high glycemic foods have been removed, or you can kind of see. But otherwise, just look at the foods that are allowed and see what you can create.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Daniella, for highlighting that. And thanks for the questions, Marianne. Fantastic. We're going to jump down to a question from Sandra. Sandra says, I've been told dried fruit causes a lot of gas. Is Sandra's, I'm assuming, question and statement at the same time. Daniella, would you just be able to give us a little bit of an expansion on that?
Oh, yeah. It is true that dried fruit can cause gas. If dried fruit causes gas, very often it's related to A, the type of fruit, or B, the fact that it's dehydrated and very dense. So some of the fruits that cause more gas than others could be apples and pears, but some of the ones that are, just dense because they don't have the water and the flexibility, because essentially it's how easy can your body digest it all. It just makes, if it goes down in the system too quickly and needs to be digested into the intestinal system, it creates more gas. So it is possible that limiting the amount of dried fruit could help, just having a few portions instead of giant handfuls at a time. That helps a lot. And just not having it too often. So even if you have it 5 smileys, you're going to be having it only small portions throughout the week. So it is most likely that portions are too big, which are very easy to do. Dried fruit, giant handful, yummy, yummy, and it goes into your stuff, into your mouth very easily. But unfortunately, usually the portions, if you have to think about a dried pear, is actually almost half a pear right there. One slice of dried pear is almost half a pear. So you have to think about how small those dried fruit portions are. We're probably looking at that to help your digestion.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thanks for a great question there, Sandra. Deanne asks, do we need to calculate foods that are crossovers, such as blueberries versus blueberry sauce? In other words, if each one is a 3 or 4 smiley, can they both be used for that amount of portions? Meaning both can be eaten in the week with 3 to 4 smileys. How does that actually work?
They do contain different nutritional components, and they work differently in the body, just like we were talking about a regular fruit versus dehydrated fruit versus maybe juicing or cooked fruit. You do change the properties of the fruit, so we are considering them different. So you do have to consider just following the guidelines as much as possible. So if you are looking at the guidelines and it says eat white meat, in this case we're fruit, eat let's say fruit 3 times a week, and then you can choose the fruits that you want to eat 3 times a week. Don't look at the smiley foods and try to eat all of those every single day all the time, because that might actually be too much. So we're really looking at balancing the portions.
Excellent. Thank you very much for clarifying that, Daniella, and thanks, Deanne. We have a question from Natalie. Natalie asks, or says, I like to juice my fruit and veg instead of smoothies. Is that okay to do? It's not on my list.
Well, we do have juices on the list, and we have smoothies on the list, so they are 2 separate things. But in this answer, I'd have to say yes and no again. It's always yes and no, good and bad. Both are phenomenal nutrient-dense powerhouses. I mean, you get all these nutrients in there, jam-packed, and they're easily absorbed right into your system. One of the main differences between juice and blended juices, I guess, the smoothies, is the pulp. That's really the main difference. So if you consider the pulp in the smoothie is all the fiber, and that fiber keeps your digestive tract very healthy. It slows down the absorption of sugar. So it's sometimes recommended to have specifically smoothies just because of what it does. However, smoothies can also slow down the absorption of some of the nutrients and that stay within the fiber. So smoothies also provide a more sustained sensation of being full throughout the day because of all those fibers, keeps you full longer. And whereas juicing is a quick release of nutrients that go right into your system, but also spike up your glycemic levels. So everything has a pro and con. A good way of knowing how good juicing is versus smoothies is kind of looking at those smileys. So if juices are low on your list and smoothies are high on your list, we're basically looking at those nutrient dense, full of fiber type of juices that you want to have that satiates you. If your juices are really high and your smoothies are low, then you can juice more. And the smoothies only once in a while. And if they're both high, go ahead. It's it's really looking at some of those smileys and being able to see how important is this for my diet right now. But they do have different properties, and they do function in different ways. So.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you again, Daniella. It's absolutely fantastic information. Very, very helpful. And again, if you guys are finding this helpful, please let us know in the messages and in the chat box. We'd love to make sure that we're giving you guys the value that you are looking for. So thank you so much for keeping us up to speed with this as we go. We've got another question here from Josie Brisbois, who I think we had a question from her at the start of this webinar. Hi guys, the webinar the other day was very helpful. Thanks so much. My question about combining foods. The question that she's asking here is, what about foods that are sprouted? That's something that there's a lot of research out there about sprouted foods. Just wondering if you can give us some ideas. I know everything's always depends, but is there any things we need to be mindful of or careful of with sprouting foods, Diana, or is it how are we sort of considering that and looking at that from pH 360 at the moment?
Yeah, I have been requested to add sprouting, soaking, fermented, and some other general prep things. So we'll put that in there with juicing and frozen and other types of preparations out there. That's not a problem. But just as a general note for everyone to know, there is a huge sprouting craze, and everybody is really interested in sprouting. Great, because it has many benefits. It pulls out some of the nutrients. It gets things out there. It's easier to digest. There's lots of benefits for sprouting. There's always, always, always a but. In this case, when it comes to sprouting, the but is that children, seniors, pregnant women, people with weakened immune systems, there are certain people who are a little bit weaker in the digestive system, and they should not necessarily eat raw sprouts because it's essentially promoting fungal bacteria. It's especially the warm, humid climate in which you're having to sprout is home for the bacteria. So they would need to eat it cooked. They could eat sprouted, but cooked. That's the difference between sprouted but raw. And then you also have to consider that there are some sprouts that are toxic, especially if they contain too much lectin. So it's really a case-specific condition. I'm pretty sure that she is relatively healthy. She doesn't have a high immune system, so it's possible they can go, but I don't want to say anything right now without looking at her profile. I'm not sure exactly for her specifically what's good or not. It's just if pH 360 says no, there's usually a reason for it. We've considered many things.
Excellent, so true, and thanks for expanding that, Daniella. And you're right, there's so many different things out there at the moment. There's so many different crazes that exist. There's so many different ways to eat foods and prepare foods. Particularly, there'll be what exists today, and the next year will be so different again. And so we'll always be considering all the different ways to prepare foods and all the different ways to cook foods, incorporate large variations of the way things are prepared. So please always ask these questions. It's fantastic, and hopefully this information can really give you a lot of benefit. But as you're hearing quite significantly across all the answers, it always depends. There's not one thing that's right for everybody. So please make sure that you take that into account. Everybody is different. Everybody is unique. Everybody is individual. There's not one single one of us out there on the planet that are exactly the same, not even identical twins. So thank you for your questions. Now, Daniella, we've got a Diana as well who works with the pH 360 team. So Daniella, we've got so many more questions. I'd love to jump. We've had some great feedback from the webinars previously where we've actually logged into people's accounts live and had you go through some of those. I'd love to do a few now. We've got quite a few on the list here. I'd love to just jump in and check those out. Are you okay if we jump to something there?
Yeah.
We've got an account here with Terry who's got a number of different questions. Please bear with me, guys, while I try and actually swap screens over here again and see if this is going to work. Let's hope so. And I'm just going to log in to Terry's account. Thank you for providing your details. And again, this is all secure. No one will see your login details. And of course, you can change your details anytime if you need to. Okay, we're into Terry's account. Terry's questions. There seems to be a contradiction between my food guide and my actual list. For example, the guide says green leafy vegetables. So many are recommended as not to eat. Also recommended smoothies, but so many fruits and veggies not recommended. And says more citrus fruits, but those fruits are not recommended. Am I misunderstanding something? So I'm just going to log into the food section here for Terry and Danielle. If you would be able to just talk us through that for Terry, and that would be fantastic.
Sure. So let's look at the green leafy vegetables. Let's go into the vegetable section and see what she has. And we'll have to go down a little bit. Okay, I'm seeing kale. I remember doing a little list of there. There was kale, there's lettuce, there's spinach, bok choy, keltis. They're just not the 5 smiley foods. They're a little bit lower. So then we kind of go back into that previous question. I see bok choy right now. There's actually quite a few of them. It's just they're not necessarily 5 smiley foods. So they're the ones that you want to have with variety. I think it's important to just consider more like what I was saying before. If you were to have some foods every week and then other foods a couple times a month and then other foods 1 time a month, you're actually meeting all the recommendations that are given to you in your healthy eating tips or food guide. Sorry, food guide. When it comes to smoothies, the only thing that we need to do is use a variety and mix things up. So smoothies are just a way of preparing the foods. We should maybe put that into prep as opposed to some of the fruits and vegetables. But essentially, you're just taking your top foods, you're putting them into smoothies. Don't be afraid of putting your vegetables into your smoothies, because that's actually a great way of being able to get all those nutrients right down into your system without having to worry about too many of the fibers that kind of hold things back. And sometimes make it, but she has tons of fruit to choose from. Yeah, she can use a variety, but I'm certainly not seeing, mango and grapes, and what am I seeing? Apples and tangelo and cherries and avocado. Avocado is great to put in smoothies, and there's just so much in there. So I think that it's really a matter of just being creative and not seeing anything as restrictive. 3 smiley foods means go ahead and put them in there once a week without a problem, right? So, oh yeah, pear, papaya. What else does she have? Goji berries, yum. So yeah, she's got lots of variety.
Excellent.
In the citrus, let's take a look at the eating tips and see exactly what it says about citrus. I wrote it down here. I just want to make sure that that gets visible in the webinar. Citrus. So vitamin rich. Okay. So they're ideal at breakfast or lunch. This is the thing that I thought was important to mention. It's just, this is something that we just want to, as a tip, give as a guideline. The reason in her case, we said don't really use it too late in the evening is because the vitamin C is a stimulant. And she mentioned sleep problems, if I recall well. So we do not want her to have things that are stimulants consumed too late in the evening. And some of the top fruits that she had were pear, mango, papaya. Those are either sedatives or enzymatics. They provide other nutrients as well, but she just needs to be able to consider those top foods, which are actually, pear is helps you sleep at night and is very calming as a food, whereas orange juice in the morning because it wakes you up essentially. So we don't want her having orange juice at night before she goes to bed and then furthering her sleep problems.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniella. That makes crystal clear sense when we talk through it. So I think hopefully the listeners looking can follow that quite easily. And Terry, hopefully that makes a lot of sense for you and answers your questions that you had. And thank you so much for that. Now, Daniella, we're going to jump on to, we've got another profile looking to here, Hayley. Let me just, again, please bear with me, guys, while we work through this.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to log into Hayley's account. Just going to grab her details. Thanks again, guys, for sending all the questions through. We're really hoping that you guys are enjoying this and getting some good value out of it. So, okay, Hayley, I'm just going to actually go ahead and leave these all as good for now, just to cut through this. I'm sorry. And you can update that one next time we're in. Okay, so Hayley's got a couple of questions here for us. First question is, the only green leafy that came up for me is spinach. I thought all green leafy vegetables are healthy. Why would I not be allowed to eat other veggies? It also said no cruciferous veggies.
Right. Yeah, I went into her profile earlier because you gave me her access information so I could check. And she actually had lots of smileys on several different green leafy vegetables like spinach, keltis, and lettuce. The ones that were taken away were especially the ones that would reduce her thyroid activity. She said she had hypothyroidism. So we needed to remove cabbage, kale, cauliflower, broccoli, and other such veggies that slow down the thyroid. So it's important to consider what are your health conditions now. She especially said she has a current hypothyroid condition. So she has green leafy veggies there on her list, but sauerkraut, I'm seeing it. Kale is taken out, cabbage is taken out, broccoli, cauliflower, broccolini. Those will all reduce thyroid activity. They have been removed for that reason, even though they're considered very healthy, not for everybody.
Excellent, thanks, Danielle. That's really great to see live in action. You know how individual the profiles are, because for a lot of people they're really healthy veggies to be eating right now, and for some, depending on your internal health, they need to be avoided. So the second part of Haley's question is, it looks like I can have arugula and Swiss chard once a week, but I make a smoothie with Swiss chard or kale daily. Thanks.
No, please don't, because kale is one of those foods that's not very good for the thyroid. She has current hypothyroidism, so all she's doing is worsening her current condition. The kale should not be in her daily foods at all. It should be taken out at this time until she can regulate her thyroid. It can be reversed, but I mean, it's a very important condition. If you don't listen to your body, or if you don't listen to advice that tries to prevent certain conditions, it gets to the point where it becomes chronic and you can't really reverse it. So hopefully we can reverse it and we can regulate her thyroid. Kale is going to slow down her thyroid. Do not put kale into your daily smoothies, even if you want to. PH360 is saying don't.
Cool, excellent. Thanks, Daniela, for making that clear. And Haley, hopefully that was really clear. Please avoid the kale for now. I know that there's a lot of information out there that talks about kale as a superfood and the amazing benefits of it, and that is so true. That's one thing we really want to be making clear here, that PH360 agrees with all the amazing breakthroughs and scientific research that's out there. We just go a number of steps further to say, you know what, it's fantastic, but it's only right for some people some of the time. Other people, it's not right for them some of the time. And it may be a large percentage of the population are completely fine to digest and process kale, and it can be a really big health booster for them. But others, such as yourself right now, please do some other things for your smoothies. And thanks, Daniela, for pointing that out.
I have 4 smileys for kale, so I'm an example of somebody who's allowed to eat kale as much as I want, or almost. But kale's not good for everyone. So
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Daniela. And thanks, Haley, for your questions. That's fantastic. We're going to log out of Haley and log into Regina next here. So again, please bear with me while we go through the log out and log in process. As you can see, we're doing this live for the benefit of you, so it does take us a minute here. So thanks so much for your patience as we go through this login process. And again, if you're enjoying this, please let us know in the messages chat box. If there's other things you'd like to see, then please let us know too. Let me see if we've got something right or wrong here. This is always the benefits of doing things live as well. I'm just going to make sure this is correct. That seems to be correct. And that's login details are not working. Okay, so Regina, I'm sorry, but we're not going to be going through your profile by the looks of things right now. We're going to jump over to Caroline. Let's have a look at Caroline here. Regina, if you have given us your incorrect information and want to send that through again, we'd love to go through your question next time. Okay, Caroline's in. Caroline, I'm sorry, I'm just going to leave yours all as good here, and you can ignore that when that comes out in the future. Okay, so we're into Caroline's profile. All right, so Caroline asks, after I eat, my stomach feels fiery. I've been eating items on my lists, and it seems better at first, but now seems to be acting up again. I do eat a lot. I do eat a lot of greens salad. Is there something more I can be doing, or a food that can soothe my stomach? I do triathlons as a hobby, so I'm in excellent physical health and body composition, but my digestion is concerning me, as I always want to optimize. More to say, but too much for this little typing box. I'd appreciate a look at my foods and see what your advice might be. So Daniela, if you'd be able to just talk us through Caroline's questions there, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't quite prepare this one ahead of time, but can you take a look at the prep area for me?
Sure can.
Okay. I'm seeing an issue right here. Didn't she talk about eating salads all the time?
Yes.
Aren't salads raw, whole, processed foods with 2 smileys?
Right.
Don't
Yes.
we have baked foods and poached and boiled and roasted and foods cooked and steamed and much higher on the list? So
Excellent.
I think it's very important to consider that even if you're eating some of the foods that you're that are on your list, it's also the how. Raw foodists, I'm not saying anything's wrong with raw fooding, just like I'm not saying anything's wrong with juicing, just like I'm not saying anything's wrong with veganism or vegetarianism or pescatarianism or anything. It's just not everything works for everybody. I'm seeing in her profile, it was the first thing that came to mind because vegetables can be very hard on the stomach. We were talking again about how cooking can break down some of the tissues around the cell and make the nutrients easy to absorb and the vegetable easier to digest. This is a case where you would see that she needs to cook her foods more often and eat the salads only once in a while, as opposed to eating salads every single day and only that. So her digestive system just needs a little bit of rest and a little bit of help. Can we also take a look at something like lemon? Can you just put that into the search?
I certainly can.
Okay, we got some lemon juice. We have some lemon. Possibly we can do a search on vinegar as well. It is possible that when she's having a salad, she could do some, olive oil and lemon juice or some balsamic vinegar, some apple cider vinegar, and add that in there because sometimes the acidity just helps break down the alkaline vegetables that we put in our salad. That's actually why vinaigrette was invented, to help digest. So there's a purpose for it. So she can probably do something like that as well. Could we also take a look at some of her dairy products?
Absolutely.
Dairy, please.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. Okay. So I'm seeing kefir. I'm seeing some of the yogurt, natural yogurt. I'm seeing, if those are the top of the list, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that some of the probiotics are being encouraged in her diet. So it is possible that if she can try having some of those probiotics when she's feeling kind of fiery in her stomach and see if that calms it down a little bit. It could possibly be helping her in that case. I didn't see exactly why she's fiery, if she's got acid reflux or something, but it's something that I'm seeing. It is true that people who have strong acid reflux or ulcerative colitis or even peptic ulcers are not always recommended to have dairy because dairy promotes more acids in the stomach and therefore is counterproductive. But in this case, it's kind of high on her list. So it's possible that the probiotics, especially in those top dairy foods, are recommended. So those are some of the ideas for her. Cook your food, please.
Please cook your foods. That's great. Thanks, Daniella. And I can never believe how quickly these sessions go. It's been an hour and a half already.
Wow, already.
That's amazing, and we're very conscious of your time. We don't want to. We could literally go on forever and ever and ever. And so we've created our fourth webinar. And Danielle, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I know we told you that it was just going to be one webinar, and we're on our third. There's going to be our fourth next week, same time. So thank you so much for your time, for joining us on these webinars. It's just amazing to have your amazing insights and knowledge and expertise that comes to provide our listeners and our members with so much information. And we really want to make sure, again, our goals and intentions of these webinars are for you all to really understand the true power and the depth of science and medicine behind PH360. It's not just some fad program. This has taken us over 10 years to get to this point in time. And hopefully, if nothing else from these webinars, you can hear from Daniella just at the depth of the science and the amazing amount of information that we actually consider in PH360 and behind PH360. So I just want to say a huge thank you so much again, Daniella, for joining us. I really want to just extend to all the listeners a huge thank you for you guys being here today and making the time to join us, whether you're listening in live, whether it's something that you're listening on a replay because you had other things on at the time. We've had an overwhelming response from people joining the webinars, and it's just amazing to see how many people are interested to learn more about PH360 and about their own health. I'm really excited about the upcoming retreat that we're having in Bali. That is something that I'm very much looking forward to, that personal health and healing. That is a possibility for those that are needing some more assistance and advice and actual interventions for their personal health conditions. And so if you do, there should be a link that pops up. If you want to find out more, or those that have friends or family that may need this, and have tried a lot of things that actually need to have more engagement in that, in the spiritual, the emotional, the physical, the mental, to help them get that shift and kickstart their own self-healing. Please email support@ph360.me. I'm not sure exactly on the positions that are left there, but for those that are coming, I'm really looking forward to meeting you. For those that are interested, please find out more information. And it's going to be the most amazing retreat available that I know of anyway, that exists. And as I think I've said a number of times now, I would actually go and attend this myself if I wasn't actually running it. So really encourage you. It's going to be on a beautiful private estate, 11-bed private estate in Bali. It's actually a 5-star luxury. It's one of the best places in the whole of Bali. Fully catered, 10 people maximum there. There's 8 health professionals that will be with us for full support, from musculoskeletal therapists, body workers, massage therapists, through to spiritual healers, energy medicine practitioners, the whole box and dice that are going to be there for you, just for you, your own personal chef, and meals prepared every single meal. Exercise sessions, exercise physiologists are going to be there. It's absolutely amazing that this retreat is just going to be life-changing and transformational for those that need it. And I'm so looking forward to it. So thank you again so much for joining us today. Daniella, again, thank you to all our amazing team at PH360. Unlimited gratefulness for everything that you guys always do. Once again, we're always looking for amazing, passionate people to join our team. And if you're interested at all in finding out more about that, you can email support@ph360.me and let us know more about you. But a huge thank you to the team, a huge thank you to all of the listeners for joining us on this webinar live, and a huge thank you to all those listening in the replay. We look forward to talking to you again next week, same time. Please check your emails. We're trying to keep you all in the loop. But thank you. And look forward to talking again soon.